very rare that the description of an upcoming film gets me pumped, but in early 2020, this one did. Nicolas Cage plays Nicolas Cage, who's captured by a Nicolas Cage-obsessed crime lord and then forced to co-write a script about Nicolas Cage as played by Nicolas Cage. Just on that plot description alone, the mind whirls at this famously self-conscious actor parodying a parody of his already parodical real-world persona. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent came out in 2022, and it was a mind-bending delight. The real-world actor, Nicolas Cage, here with a fictional ex-wife and daughter, is desperate for cash, and he agrees to attend for a stipend the birthday party of a shady Spanish businessman, played with doe-eyed sweetness by Pedro Pascal. When he arrives in Mallorca, he's strong-armed by the CIA to help them investigate the kidnapping of a local politician's daughter. The main suspect is Cage's host, Javi Gutierrez. The two men bond immediately, and Cage must choose between his friendship with a potentially violent criminal and the CIA. When I say it like that, this sounds just like any old movie, but the movie knows that, and it has a lot more up its sleeve.
She's acting her reaction. She's imposing.
No sooner does Cage arrive at Javi's estate than his starstruck host begins constructing a fictional story for them to live out together. He claims that they're being followed by an enemy general and coerces Cage to leap off a cliff, Butch and Sundance style, although Javi's hammy acting makes it very clear that the threat is completely trumped up.
These people smell blood and they come running. They're almost to the edge of the forest.
Nudged never so slightly by the CIA, Cage agrees to write a screenplay with his new bestie in order to buy time on Javi's compound to do spy stuff. Soon, their conversations begin to explain, very deadpan, the genres which this film is casually visiting.
I was thinking that maybe our movie would be character-driven.
So that it doesn't rely on corny special effects.
This is an intelligent film for grown-ups.
They address the audience without ever breaking the fourth wall.
Has to be nuanced.
And work on multiple levels.
Now, personally, I want a smart, character-driven adult drama about real life.
Maybe this movie, maybe it's about this. Our relationship.
It's good.
The film, whose two central characters are neurotic, self-obsessed, and frightened, seems itself to be neurotic, self-obsessed, and frightened.
But the reality is, most people need a bit of a hook to get them into the theater.
The finale is about two men saving the girl? That's terrible.
It has no desire to be a mainstream Hollywood action blockbuster, but slowly acquiesces to genre tropes.
Our movie would start out as a beautiful character piece and then slowly change into a more thrilling
Hollywood blockbuster. Then there's something for everyone.
And it all climaxes as Cage saves the day, and we cut, uninterrupted, to the Hollywood premiere of the movie that Cage and Javi just wrote, with Demi Moore in the role of Cage's ex-wife.
Doesn't really do your mother justice, does it?
Never without apologizing to the audience in advance.
You know, Nick, I think a kidnapping could give this movie a wider appeal. I mean, it's pretty hard to find an audience these days, right?
Unless you're a Marvel movie, Star Wars, whatever, yeah.
It becomes a Hollywood blockbuster despite itself, maybe like Nicolas Cage did. The movie knows it's got a movie, and knows that we as an audience have unrealistic high expectations for it, just as Javi and Cage have for Nicolas Cage. At one point, Cage and Javi bond over their top 3 films. It reminded me of the excellent High Fidelity, where John Cusack, Jack Black, and other record store nerds played nerd games about music, inviting us to play along and knowing that we'll lose. But here, although both men are clearly movie-obsessed, their conversation is much more heartfelt and personal. Javi's top 3 films include Face Off,
Where's the maestro? Thank you.
The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari,
You love Caligari? I love Caligari. Wow. I was beginning to think I was the only one.
which Cage has forced his daughter to watch, and which is a favorite of mine as well. See, they tricked me into playing along. And
Paddington 2.
What?
as someone who spends a lot of time encouraging strangers to check out movies they might not otherwise watch, the Paddington 2 thing got me. Right after seeing this, I traveled to the house of an old friend, a film snob whom I was urging to check out The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. And during my stay there, in his carefully curated film library was a copy of Paddington 2. Just like the fictional Nicolas Cage, I was lured into watching it.
Paddington 2 is incredible.
And I have to admit, it's an utterly charming film. The Unbearable Weight is about a lot of things, but having a diverse love for cinema is definitely one of the big ones. And I think it shows a big heart if you love a lot of diverse things.
A fine romance with no kisses.
The chemistry between Cage and Pascal sells this movie. It's a whirlwind bromance based on rom-com style misunderstandings. They finish each other's sandwiches perfectly.
It's just easy.
Not since I Love You Man with Paul Rudd and Jason Segel have I rooted so hard for two straight males to get together. Oh, and RRR, which was the greatest bromance film ever made. This movie, despite its convoluted concept, which would have been at home in a Spike Jonze film like Being John Malkovich or, well, adaptation, is far from highbrow.
And maybe it's just the drugs talking. But what if we had like a big drug scene?
Wow.
There's plenty of dumb laugh-out-loud set pieces, some reaching Marx Brothers absurdity. A running gag has Javi unintentionally doing very threatening gangsta things, making him seem like a ruthless villain instead of just a lonely movie nerd. The movie sticks to Cage's limited point of view, so while we, as an audience member, are in on the joke, we're simultaneously writing the film as a thriller for Cage and a comedy for us.
My way.
If you grew up in the 80s, you'll remember when Nicolas Cage was a promising, talented young actor who could surprise you with a few quirks. He shifted gears with alarming alacrity, the edgy hunk in Valley Girl, the whacked-out thief in Raising Arizona, the beefy action star in Con Air, the desperate bureaucrat in The Rock, the suicidal alcoholic in Leaving Las Vegas, the existentially challenged twins in Adaptation, the family man impersonating a deadly nutjob in Face Off. And with all respect to this hard-working and versatile actor, his roles now are a collection of quirks that occasionally remind us what a great actor he actually is. So if Nicolas Cage plays Nicolas Cage, which Nicolas Cage are we going to get? The answer is a sad sack, divorced father struggling for legitimacy. The opening 20 minutes, set in Los Angeles, sets up the usual dad who's too devoted to his work and has isolated his daughter and his ex-wife cliché, except this time he's Nicolas Cage. Cage is haunted by Nicky, a caricature of his movie star reputation, wildly overacting and irresponsible, addicted to being
Nick.
Whoa, Cage!
He doesn't shy away from his less remembered films, some of which deserve to be forgotten.
He wanted me to wear a bee, and I said, Jeff, not the bees, not the bees.
Me and my nephew Raymond just watched Croods 2.
You did all of your own driving stunts and Gone in 60 Seconds.
Oh, that's true.
The movie repeatedly reminds us he works too much, and sometimes the results are not exactly masterpieces.
Is that the chainsaw from Mango?
No, not the bees! Not the bees!
I will say that one of my first decent memories with my cantankerous mother-in-law was the two of us watching Guarding Tess together on VHS, so even the lesser Nicolas Cage movies have their merits. Tiffany Haddish plays Cage's CIA handler, protecting and shepherding him in a way not too different from Cage in Guarding Tess. Out of all the characters, including Cage's own family, Haddish seems to be the only one who gets him and can manipulate him, and she manipulates him as a vulnerable actor, willing to stop and acknowledge a fan of Croods 2 long enough to plant a tracker in his pocket, and waking him from a drug-induced torpor by yelling,
Action!
The movie's title obviously riffs on Milan Kundera's novel, The Unbearable Lightness of Being, whose movie adaptation was ill-received by its author, to say the least. The novel posits that people have only one life to live, and accepting the finitude of that fact releases us to experience our one life to its fullest. Nicolas Cage's life, in reality and in the kaleidoscope presented here, is fractured into a myriad of mini-lives. Javi has collected these into a literal museum of Nicolas Cage as a tribute to somebody who defies both the idea of eternal recurrence and the lightness of only living once. Cage, in Javi's view, has overcome what a man can logically accomplish.
Which is why I should always trust my shamanic instincts as a thespian.
I can't agree with Javi on that, but this movie is about as beautiful a love letter to acting as you can get.